Good evening. Several winter storms are approaching our region. So, if you're a fan of winter weather, I believe you will find this forecast quite interesting. If not, it is important information we must all be aware of regardless. The first system is a weekend snowstorm that is now moving into the picture, with forecasts already calling for over a foot of snow across parts of the Midwest. We will begin with a detailed analysis of that first storm, followed by a discussion of a time frame next week that also carries a risk for a winter storm. We will then conclude the video by examining this unusual weather pattern as a whole and what it may bring as we move further into the month of December. I have reason to believe that we could see continued periods of very cold air. And if that air combines with moisture, we will certainly continue to see chances for winter storms. We will cover that toward the end of our discussion. My name is Mitch, and I wish you a good Thursday evening and a very happy Thanksgiving. I am genuinely thankful for everyone who watches this channel, and I truly appreciate that you allow me to discuss the subject I am so passionate about, which is the weather. Please subscribe if you have not already, and feel free to like the video. If anyone has something I can keep in my thoughts and prayers, please leave a comment below. Now, let us begin our detailed forecast tonight, as there is a great deal to cover, starting with winter storm number 1. As I mentioned, this system is already beginning to move in, but we will start our timeline for tomorrow morning. This map shows Eastern Time, so it reads 9 o'clock in the morning, which would be 8 o'clock Central Time. We will be looking at the NAM model here to focus on one forecast projection. We can already see this area of heavy precipitation. It appears as a finger of significant moisture moving across the Dakotas and beginning to enter portions of Nebraska. Now, as we advance the timeline forward in roughly 6-hour increments, we arrive at about 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. At this point, snow is beginning to move into areas of Iowa. It is also reaching areas of extreme southwestern Minnesota. We see this band of snow moving through parts of the Dakotas, and while it may appear narrow on the map, it is quite widespread. This snowfall could be rather heavy where it occurs, but some locations will experience a very sharp cutoff. For instance, Rapid City may not see any precipitation, while Pierre will be receiving snow. As we continue into tomorrow evening, around 8 or 9 o'clock, very heavy snow will begin to move into parts of Iowa. You may notice some green shading around the blue. Blue indicates snow, and green typically indicates rain. However, in this particular case, the green shading also represents snow, so please keep that in mind. As we move this forward, there appears to be a wintry transition zone developing here in Omaha. I do believe this is rain farther south, where you see the pink and purple shades. This could indicate a wintry mix, including some sleet and possibly some freezing rain. In fact, a light accumulation of ice is forecast for that region. Now, let us also acknowledge what is happening over in Wyoming. Some snow could be occurring in Casper, along with a little bit of snow across the Rockies of Colorado. It is still snowing back in Bismarck and Pierre. But as we continue to advance the timeline through the middle of the night tomorrow, around 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, it will be snowing in Minneapolis. A significant question is just how far north this band of snow will extend. Snow is still falling back in the Dakotas, and we even see a trailing area of snow in western Nebraska. There is that wintry mix, say in Lincoln, while it is snowing in Omaha on this particular model run. This area may see a mix of sleet, freezing rain and snow due to a low-pressure system bringing in warmer air at higher altitudes. The surface temperatures may be cold enough for winter weather, but aloft, many of those snowflakes are melting. Let us now shift our view slightly to the east and put the forecast back in motion. This is where the situation becomes quite fascinating to me. I have been speaking with some people from St. Louis on social media. The forecast for St. Louis is particularly complex. This is around 6 or 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. This precipitation right here could be a very heavy, wet snow in St. Louis. I am referring to snowflakes the size of large cotton balls. These could be very large, moisture-laden snowflakes. This could be a very heavy, wet snow to start your Saturday morning in St. Louis. The question is, will it remain as snow? I do not believe it will, but let's continue the timeline. In Chicago, it will be snowing quite heavily at daybreak on Saturday. You can likely tell how much I enjoy discussing snowfall, as I live here in central South Carolina. We very seldom see snow here, but I am certainly watching this system with great interest for all of you, though I know not everyone enjoys it. This will be a heavy, wet snow in Des Moines and Dubuque. Snow will also be falling in Davenport, Quincy, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Oshkosh, and it will just be starting to move into the Green Bay area. Then we take it through midday Saturday, around 11 o'clock in the morning. By lunchtime, snow will be falling across almost the entirety of Iowa. It will still be snowing back in Omaha and Lincoln. I apologize if I do not mention your specific town. Minneapolis, you are situated right on the northern edge of the heaviest moisture, but it is certainly cold enough for snow. It will be snowing in Green Bay and Madison as well. These darker coloured corridors you see here indicate extremely heavy snowfall. But notice St. Louis down here. You can see how it starts as snow and then transitions to rain. So you might receive a quick few, or perhaps even several inches of heavy, wet snow before it changes to a cold rain. Colder air will follow the storm, which could freeze any snow that has fallen. As we continue to move this forecast forward, and I know this is a slow-moving system, but I want to cover all the details of the timeline, we get into about 4 or 5 o'clock on Saturday afternoon, and the snow is overspreading nearly all of Michigan. This includes both Upper and Lower Michigan. Let's just go back a moment and discuss this timeline. Look at Indianapolis, a highly populated area. On the NAM model, it starts as a very heavy, wet snow. Although this looks green, it will likely begin as very large snowflakes. The same is true for Evansville. Much like St. Louis, it could begin as very heavy, wet snow. Even areas down here in western Kentucky could start with extremely heavy, wet snow, before it quickly transitions to rain. And then, as we move into Saturday evening, we see a significant and widespread snowstorm across the Midwest and Great Lakes region. By this point on Saturday evening, Chicago will be in the middle of a classic snowstorm. I know that many of you in that area have not seen significant winter weather recently. I say that on behalf of those who enjoy winter weather, though I understand many people up there are not fans. As you all know, I am a great admirer of winter weather, but Toledo and Detroit will be getting snow. Then, as we move into the middle of the night, which is as far as this particular model goes, between Saturday night and Sunday morning, around midnight, this entire snowstorm continues. Peoria and Springfield are still seeing snow. Chicago is still snowing, as is Detroit and all of Michigan. And look how heavy this snow is in Cleveland. Canton and Columbus are even experiencing snow. It is even snowing in parts of Cincinnati, and down here in the northern areas of Kentucky. This is as far as this forecast model extends for now. Let's pick up where that one left off with another model. As we continue the timeline into Sunday morning, the last part of this storm begins to move east. It is still snowing across most of Michigan, but as you can see, Ohio starts to change. It may begin as heavy, wet snow, but then transition to plain rain before colder air filters in behind the system. I also want to turn our attention to the northeast, as the forecast has trended a little bit colder for that region. This is around midday on Sunday, and it does show precipitation moving in. This could be a heavy, wet snow across New York State, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and northern Pennsylvania. This also includes the favoured cold air damming regions of Pennsylvania, such as the Allegheny Mountains, western Maryland, the highlands of West Virginia, and the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains of Virginia. This pink shading could represent freezing rain, while the orange indicates a mixture of sleet and freezing rain. As we get into Sunday evening, many of these areas could transition to plain rain. For the Interstate 95 corridor, it does not appear to be your turn for winter weather just yet. But please stay tuned as I have a section of the video coming up for you. There may be a small possibility for winter weather fans, but the interior northeast will see mainly snow, especially in those higher elevations, and then the cold air will filter in behind it. There might also be a period of lake effect snow following the main storm. Now, for the snowfall totals that everyone is curious about, let us make our way from west to east. I know I do not have a large audience from Montana, but I feel it is important not to leave the state out entirely. So, this is for Montana, showing how much snow you can expect with this storm. Please feel free to pause the video here if you need to. And then, as we move east, this is North Dakota. Bismarck can expect 2 to 5 inches of snow, and Dickinson, 2 to 5 inches. I am just trying to mention a couple of locations. Fargo appears to be just too far north to see the heaviest of the snow. Now we move down to South Dakota. This is where the potential for more significant snowfall begins to increase. I do want to bring up the official watches and warnings map. I need to show you all who currently has winter storm watches, warnings, and winter weather advisories. Over the last couple of hours, we have seen an upgrade from a winter storm watch to a winter storm warning across parts of South Dakota. Pierre is expecting 2 to 6 inches of snow, Sioux Falls 4 to 6 inches, Brookings 4 to 6 inches, and Watertown 2 to 4 inches. For our friends in Aberdeen, we are looking at 3 to 5 inches. Now, this is where the forecast becomes a bit more complex. Omaha could see 3 to 8 inches of snow, while in Lincoln, totals could range from 1 inch up to half a foot. Sioux City is expecting 5 to 11 inches. Some ice is also possible in this area, perhaps a couple of tenths of an inch. And for York, the forecast calls for a tenth to a quarter of an inch of freezing rain. So this is certainly a challenging area to forecast, with the potential for a bit of a wintry mix. Now, let's turn our attention to Minnesota, specifically the southern half of the state. For Minneapolis itself, we could see 3 to 7 inches of snow. Currently, there is a winter weather advisory in effect for Minneapolis, and I do believe that could be upgraded to a winter storm warning. The city is located just north of the heaviest precipitation, so I would advise everyone there to stay tuned for more frequent updates. Now, for the southern areas of Minnesota, accumulations could be anywhere from half a foot to a full foot of snow, depending on the storm's exact track. Moving onward, let's take a look at Iowa. Iowa is preparing for a significant amount of heavy, wet snow. A large portion of the state will likely see at least half a foot of accumulation. The only areas that may see less are in the southwestern sections of the state, where the low-pressure system will be very close. For Des Moines, we are forecasting 8 to 13 inches, and in Ames, 9 to 14. Fort Dodge is looking at a similar amount. Waterloo could see 9 to 13 inches, and Dubuque 8 to 12. There is a chance for some light freezing rain in this area, perhaps a few tenths of an inch. My apologies, not a couple of tenths. It will be closer to a few hundredths of an inch of ice. A couple of tenths would be a significant ice event. Some freezing rain is possible in the southwestern parts of the state. Now, let's turn our attention to the Kansas City area. In the northern parts of Missouri, Kirksville is looking at 4 to 8 inches of snow. Bethany could see 2 to 6, and Maryville 1 to 5. As for Kansas City, it may see a wintry mix as the storm begins. However, I am not expecting any significant winter weather for the city itself. Moving north into Wisconsin, Green Bay is forecast to receive 6 to 8 inches of snow. In that region, the air is certainly cold enough for snow. You are just situated a bit too far north of the heaviest snowfall band. So, we can expect anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow across this area. As you travel farther south, the more snow is expected. Looking at other cities, Eau Claire is forecasting 3 to 6 inches of snow. Madison is expecting 7 to 12, and Platteville could see 8 to 12 inches. La Crosse is looking at 6 to 10 inches. Please feel free to pause the video at any point, folks. I try to provide as many graphics as possible, and sometimes it is a shame these detailed videos do not reach more people, because I truly feel that and this is certainly not about self-praise, but I do strive to be one of the most thorough weather resources available. I understand that not everyone has the time to watch a weather update that lasts for 30 minutes, and I respect that completely. However, providing this level of detail is the only way I know how to do this, and it is the method I am most committed to. Now, back to Wisconsin. Milwaukee is forecasting 9 to 18 inches of snow. Janesville is expecting 9 to 18 as well. That means some areas could see nearly 1.5 feet of snow. We are even approaching the 20-inch mark in places like Port Washington. Those are truly impressive totals. And it is important to note this is not lake effect snow. This is a classic large-scale snowstorm. The Quad Cities are expecting 8 to 12 inches. Freeport is looking at 8 to 13, and Princeton 8 to 12 inches. For Peoria, the forecast is 7 to 11. Now for Chicago. Let me see if we have an updated graphic. Let's get the very latest information here. Yes. The current forecast for Chicago is a bit conservative, and I can certainly understand why the forecasters are being cautious. It seems I am having a little trouble clicking on the image, so I do apologize. I should have kept the previous graphic on the screen. I hope you can still see the numbers. For Chicago, it is 6 to 8 inches of snow, and for Rockford, 8 to 12 inches of snow. The website for Chicago can be a bit slow for me at times. It is not an issue with my internet connection. Their site can just be a bit particular. Hopefully, the information is clear enough for you. Joliet is forecast to receive 6 to 8 inches of snow. I believe Chicago could see much more snow than this, but I understand why they are being conservative with their forecast. Now, heading farther south in Illinois, Lincoln is expecting 6 to 12 inches. Bloomington, 7 to 14, and Peoria could see 9 to 17 inches of snow. You may notice that some of these graphics show slightly different numbers, and that is simply due to the timing of their updates. The farther south we go, the more uncertainty there is in the forecast. For instance, just 4 to 8 inches in Litchfield, and then we head down to the St. Louis area. Right now, St. Louis is forecasting a quick 2 to 4 inches of heavy, wet snow. But I want to emphasize this has the potential to catch people by surprise down there on Saturday morning. In tomorrow's videos, I will go over the atmospheric data for this area in more detail, but the conditions are perfectly aligned for heavy, wet, pasty snow once you get down to the Interstate 70 corridor. This could truly be a significant amount of snow. So I would encourage everyone to continue checking for updates around the St. Louis area. The current forecast is 2 to 4 inches, and here are some other locations on your screen. Now, let's head back north into Michigan. More snow is on the way for the Upper Peninsula. Some of this forecast combines the ongoing lake effect snow with the new system, so you do have to factor that into the totals. A viewer kindly mentioned that I skipped over Michigan in this morning's video, and they were absolutely right. My apologies. It can be challenging because the forecasts are combining that existing lake effect snow, but for Kalamazoo, 11 to 16 inches of snow is forecast. Grand Rapids is looking at 10 to 15 inches. Flint could see anywhere from 4 to 10. Goodness, that is a lot of snow on the way for you all. Detroit is expecting 4 to 9 inches. I know my good friend in Detroit is going to enjoy this. I sometimes confuse my friends Stephen in Upper Michigan and Steve in Detroit. I believe it is Steve in Detroit. It is looking like a good one for you, my friend. Enjoy this. I am happy for you. Now, for northern Indiana, we are expecting a very powerful storm in that region. A great deal of snow is on the way. Just look at these areas, with 1/2 foot to over 1 foot of snow in the forecast. Indianapolis is a tricky location. It could get 1 inch, or it could get 1/2 foot. One of our reliable computer models suggests you will probably get 1/2 foot of snow. As you head up the interstate, Lafayette could see 5 to 11 inches, and Marion 3 to 9 inches of snow. As you go south of Indianapolis, there is even more uncertainty. A few inches of snow is possible to likely. Evansville is down here at the bottom of your screen, in a very difficult area to predict. It could get nothing, or it could end up with an inch or two of snow. For Louisville and Kentucky in general, I would say the western to northern parts of the state have the best chance of seeing some accumulation. It could be just a dusting, but some folks could certainly get an inch or two of snow. And then in northern Ohio, this forecast is a combination of lake effect snow and the incoming storm. And please keep in mind, this particular map only goes out to 7 o'clock on Sunday morning, folks. So this does not show the entirety of the storm, but it shows how much they are expecting in this area between now and 7 in the morning on Sunday. Final totals could be a little higher, but Cincinnati is expecting about half an inch of snow, Columbus about 1 inch, and Dayton an inch or two of snow. Now, speaking of the Northeast, that is a tough forecast. It is complicated because you have the ongoing lake effect snows, so we are combining what is on the way with this weekend storm and what is already happening with the lake effect. So all of these totals are merged together on this map. But the main takeaway from this is that it will be an event for the interior of New England. The Interstate 95 corridor is not going to receive much from this storm. However, I am keeping a close watch on a potentially hazardous wintry mix for the areas typically prone to it in West Virginia, Western Maryland, the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, Virginia, and even all the way down into North Carolina. And sure enough, the European forecast model is indicating a bit of ice. We could see a few hundredths of an inch of ice, maybe even a tenth of an inch. I think there will be a difficult wintry mix here as we head into Sunday. We will provide more details on that as they become available. Now, let's switch gears and look ahead to next week. It seems the weather never rests, as on December 1st, next Monday, we have another system to figure out. Some energy will start to come together, and by Monday morning, December 1st, we will have some moderate to light snow across Colorado, northern New Mexico, and Kansas. As we continue to move the forecast forward, we see this moisture beginning to connect. A little bit of light snow will be flying around in Oklahoma and eastern Kansas into Missouri. Then, these areas of precipitation could merge over northern Arkansas, where we might see some snow, or more likely, a wintry mix. A wintry mix is even possible, I would say, in places like Memphis and perhaps Little Rock. Then we continue forward in time, and yes, that is some heavier snow showing up in Tennessee. I think that is a very real possibility. Now, if we continue with the European model and look at the eastern United States, here it comes. This is when the system really begins to strengthen. This is for Tuesday morning. It appears to be all rain across the southeast, but you can see that difficult pink color. That represents freezing rain for the regions known for cold air damming near the North Carolina mountains and foothills. To the west, however, that is snow in Middle Tennessee and into Kentucky. And it is not just light snow, that is heavy snow. We will have to watch closely to see how this unfolds. There is an area of light snow to the north, and then a strong low-pressure system down to 997 millibars off the mid-Atlantic coast. A storm of that intensity will certainly get the job done. The main question is whether the cold air will be in place. The Carolinas look to be mainly rain, as does most of Virginia and the Delmarva and Tidewater areas. But in northern Virginia, that is snow. It is also snow in West Virginia, areas of Ohio, and eastern Kentucky. That is all snow. And as we continue to move forward, we see that is snow in New York City, northern New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland, even Washington, D.C., and Boston. That would be a heavy, wet snow from a very strong 992 millibar low-pressure system off the coast. If this forecast is correct, this would occur on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning of next week. That would be a major snowstorm for Boston. We just have to watch the details. Now, what about the American GFS model? This is running right now, and I believe we have the full run available. We will take it all the way to Monday morning. I am looking at this particular run for the first time with you. The GFS model is a bit more aggressive with a wintry mix in Arkansas, and it does not bring the snow as far south in Oklahoma. But it does show a band of moderate snow moving through Kansas and extending into northern Missouri. This path takes it over Kansas City, and if the forecast holds for Monday, could bring some accumulating snow to areas around St. Louis as well. My apologies, I meant to emphasize Kansas City there. We are also watching a significant wintry mix for central to northern Arkansas. It will be interesting to see if this GFS model is correct. The system then progresses to the east. As we update the forecast, we can see the first storm system, which we have already discussed. Now, here comes the second storm system, which is a more intensified low-pressure area. This low pressure is projected to track directly across the Appalachians, bringing all rain to the mid-south. This second system is tracking farther north, and it will essentially be snow falling on top of the snow that has already accumulated from the prior system. You can see the classic signal of cold air damming appearing in the usual areas, such as the foothills and mountains of the Appalachian Range. As we move into Tuesday morning, the low-pressure center is cutting right across the Carolinas, setting up a significant winter storm for Ohio and for Pennsylvania. A messy wintry mix is expected, and even New York City could see some of that mix. However, it should be mainly rain there due to the proximity of the low-pressure center. This will also create a major mixing issue in southern New England. For the interior northeast, however, because the cold air is already established, this is shaping up to be a very large snowstorm for all of you. Following that, we will need to carefully monitor what happens next. Looking at the snow potential from this, we have the European Ensemble model, which shows data in 3-day increments. It indicates a footprint of snow across parts of the Central Plains and Missouri. 1 to 2 inches of snow is possible from this, which could be enough to meet winter weather advisory criteria. This particular forecast is for what may occur this weekend. This next map is for what could happen as we head into early next week. We are seeing a signal from the blend of all the models for a few hundredths of an inch of ice accumulation in parts of Arkansas, Missouri, and generally in the mid-Mississippi Valley area. Now, let us look at the forecast signal for the eastern United States. That large area of snow you see right here represents what is currently happening. Then, as you see this other area emerge, that is the strong indication we are seeing for the winter storm risk next week. We are looking at a couple of inches of average snowfall across the Ohio Valley, but several inches of average snowfall across the northeast. Notice even northern Virginia and the mid-Atlantic are included, so that is a very strong signal. Please pardon the background noise for a moment. My dog is making his presence known. I do apologise for that interruption. But this is a heavy snowfall signal for the northeast. In fact, we are seeing a 4 to 5 inch average snowfall across parts of New England. That is quite a solid indication. And if we examine the potential for ice from this system, there is a small signal for that as well. This map shows the potential for ice with the midweek storm as we move into next week. This other area is a combination of the weekend storm and what could develop next week across the mid-Atlantic. We will continue to refine the details of this forecast as more data becomes available. Our primary focus is on the system arriving this weekend, and afterward we will be able to provide much more specific details on the potential winter storm for next week. Now, let's talk about the overall weather pattern, folks. I have good reason to believe that December will continue to bring pushes of cold, Arctic air down into the lower 48 states, along with the continuing potential for winter storms. So, as we look ahead to next week, the areas in blue and green on this map represent lower pressure. The areas in red, orange, and pink indicate higher pressure. Forgive me, I do not have my drawing tool available at the moment, but I can describe this for you. We see a ridge of high pressure building strongly up into Alaska. In meteorology, we call this a negative Eastern Pacific Oscillation, or EPO. This pattern helps to dislodge cold air southward into an active storm track. You can see this extension in blue right here, which represents lower pressure. This is the signal for our storm system next week, and the cold air source will be feeding into that system's moisture. As we continue to look past this time frame, and I know we are looking quite far ahead, there is another pattern beginning to emerge. I am not yet certain if this will be a cold and dry pattern, but this is for the time frame around the 6th, 7th, and 8th of the month. So for next weekend, you can see this trough on the European ensemble model. The European model is one of the most reliable tools we can use for long-range forecasting. It is showing a strong signal for a trough, which is a dip in the jet stream, digging down into the eastern United States, along with a building ridge of high pressure out west. This setup, once again, will bring cold air and the potential for another storm next weekend. As we look even further out, the forecast confidence does decrease. However, what I consistently see is this pattern of troughing over Canada and the northern sections of the United States. You can think of this entire blue area as a vast reservoir of cold air, almost like a detached piece of the polar vortex. Any storm systems that develop to the south will have this cold air available to tap into, which increases the risk of winter weather. Even as we look all the way out to the 10th of the month, we see some movement. But one thing that remains very clear is this large mass of cold air to the north. Therefore, I believe we will continue to experience surges of cold air down into the lower 48 states. Essentially, because of this persistent cold, we are reinforcing our source region for Arctic air. While this blue colouring indicates troughing, which brings the cold air with it, it looks as though we are building a reservoir of deeply cold air, if you will. We are effectively locking in the cold over our source region, which is right up here to our north. You see, often when cold air travels down from the higher latitudes, it has a chance to warm up slightly as it moves over the land. In this case, it may not do that. In fact, it could even trend colder. To put it simply, it appears we have a very strong source of cold air to our north that could affect us multiple times throughout the month of December. And this long-range forecast takes us all the way out to about the 10th or 11th of the month. Now, if we look at the European ensemble model's temperature forecast compared to average, the blues and the greens indicate colder than average temperatures. For example, if your average temperature for a given day is 55 degrees and the forecast is for 10 degrees below average, then you could expect temperatures in the mid-40s. I hope that explanation is helpful. The warmer colours you see on your screen represent above average temperatures. We will begin with next Tuesday, and what you will notice is that below average temperatures are expected to continue for the central and eastern United States. You may recall we were discussing the possibility of a very warm start to December. Well, it is safe to say that idea is no longer on the table. Looking ahead about 1 week from today, it still appears cold across the eastern United States, while the western United States looks quite warm. The potential for a significant warm-up after that remains uncertain at this time. However, I am not confident that a widespread warm-up will occur. Looking all the way to next weekend, another pool of cold air is projected to move into the eastern United States. There will likely be a battle between the warm ridge and the cold trough, but even as we get into the second week of December, around the 8th, 9th and 10th, another push of cold air arrives and the pattern continues. If you take a broader view of this map, you will notice our cold air consistently arrives from the same region to our north. It is just one blast of cold air after another. This supports the overall pattern I was just describing. Now, one thing just occurred to me that I do want to share with you all. I neglected to show you the current watches and warnings for the winter storm that is approaching this weekend, but we will move on for now. What I find quite puzzling is the 8 to 14-day temperature outlook. I typically look forward to this product to see if it aligns with the model guidance, but I must admit, I have some reservations about today's official forecast. It did not fill me with confidence this afternoon, as I feel it may be incorrect. This 8 to 14-day temperature outlook covers the period from the 5th through the 11th. I personally do not believe we will see above-average temperatures for this area of the southeast. In fact, I am quite certain we will experience below-average temperatures in this region. I also believe the area of cooler, below-average temperatures, shown here in blue, should extend much farther to the south. I am not certain what data led to this particular forecast. I would have expected to see near-normal temperatures reaching all the way down into Alabama, Georgia, and Mississippi. But we could debate the finer points of these maps all day. This next map is the 6 to 10-day temperature outlook. This covers the 3rd through the 7th of the month. And I suppose this is a bit more reasonable. Still, I would have likely adjusted this warmer area. The outlook from the Climate Prediction Centre is unusual today, and frankly, it is a bit perplexing. Now, let's turn our attention to the MJO. I realise we are covering a great deal of information, but I am passionate about the weather and want to provide a complete picture. Regarding the Madden-Julian Oscillation, you may recall that phases 4, 5, and 6 are typically our warm phases. We are currently in phase 7. This phase favours cold air entering the United States, but it often has to contend with a ridge of high pressure over the southeast and the southern tier of the country, and sometimes even the eastern United States. Nevertheless, it does favour a significant push of cold air, which is exactly what we are experiencing right now. Today is the 27th, and we should be squarely in phase 7. Phases 8, 1, and 2 are our cold phases. And folks, we are heading directly toward phase 8. The latest European model shows us moving swiftly toward it by next week, and then becoming fully established in phase 8. And please note, phase 8 is a classic pattern for cold and wintry weather during December for the central and eastern United States, and indeed for almost the entire country. We are heading toward a very favourable phase for winter weather. What I believe is happening, everyone, is that the forecast models are having a difficult time resolving the details of this transition. We are closely watching the progression of the Madden-Julian Oscillation and its potential effects. I believe the current pattern is a complex mixture of several factors, including significant high-latitude blocking, a stretched polar vortex, and the recent sudden stratospheric warming event. Now, I have intentionally stepped back from discussing that stratospheric warming over the past week, as I feel it is important to only share information that is well understood and reliable. After reviewing the analyses from many respected colleagues, it has become clear there is no firm consensus on the precise impacts of that stratospheric warming event. For that reason, I have chosen to set it aside for now. However, what we can state with certainty is that there has been a significant disruption in the atmosphere high above the polar region. This type of disruption is what dislodges cold Arctic air and sends it southward. When you combine that with the fact that we are heading toward phase 8 of the Madden-Julian Oscillation, the outlook becomes quite interesting indeed. That is the situation as I see it right now. I truly appreciate you all joining me, and I certainly hope this video is helpful, as I was quite excited to prepare it for you. I have noticed, however, that these updates have not been reaching as many of you lately. I am not entirely sure of the reason, but perhaps it is because a majority of our audience is here in the south, and forecasts about northern snow may not hold as much interest. It is difficult to say for sure. Nevertheless, I hope these forecasts do begin to reach more people, because I truly enjoy putting this information together for you. With that said, God bless you all. Have a wonderful and peaceful night, and we will do this again tomorrow morning.